Hey everyone, Daniel Topor here and welcome to the Dancing with Doubt podcast, where we go deep into how leaders have overcome adversity to unleash their success and delve into the why. Why are we really here on this big, beautiful earth? On today's episode, I'm sitting down with my friend Marishka Cross. Marishka is a highly seasoned strategy maestro, having previously worked at PwC, KPMG, and now Deloitte as a director of sales and business development in Melbourne, Australia. She was also previously a board member of a tech startup, actively mentors young professionals, hosts a radio show at KISSFM, and is a well-loved DJ, performing under the name of Mish'Chief, where she regularly bangs out beautiful melodic techno sets at festivals and clubs across Australia. I personally know Mish from when we actually met on a dance floor about 8 years ago. Although the exact time and place has escaped me, our connection from the very first interaction definitely has not. I've always loved and respected how Mish has fused her busy corporate life with her creative identity. The good, the bad, and the awkward. She's bright, vivacious, and also a wise soul. And I can't wait to go deep with her on episode 3. In this episode, we delve into topics such as integrating your business identity with your creative self, finding the courage to stand out and live life true to your passions, and celebrating excellency and not settling for mediocrity. So for me, this is a really deep dive into managing the dance between all those beautiful and diverse elements that make up our true, authentic selves. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for lending me your ears wherever in the world you are. I hope you find this episode entertaining, insightful, and stimulating. Season 1, Episode 3, let's roll. Mish, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Dan, and thank you for such a warm introduction.
Absolutely. First question, Mish. So we met on a dance floor. You're on the Dancing with Doubt podcast.
I know, what are the chances? I love it. As soon as I saw the title, I thought, there's no such thing as synchronicity. So we were meant for each other.
Absolutely. And look, I just have to ask this. Am I the first or the only business connection that you've met undertaking, shall we call it, extracurricular activities?
No, you're certainly not the first or the only. In fact, it's probably been one of the biggest connectors, both professionally and personally, that I've had. So I have met business partners and employers and numerous other important and unexpected people on dance floors. And so, yeah, it's actually been a surprise to me as well.
And what's an example of some of those numerous interesting souls that you've met?
Oh gosh, you're really going to expose me on this one, but probably my most interesting one was actually playing at a festival, playing at Rainbow, and I was at PwC at the time. And I was actually not on the dance floor, so behind the decks on this one, but playing away, and I looked out into the crowd and thought, God, that person sure looks familiar. They look a lot like a partner at work, who was a very senior partner.
A partner?
And I thought,
wow.
no, wouldn't be. What are the chances? Because I was having a right old time. And went back to work the sort of following week, walking into a very senior stakeholder workshop, and he literally pulls me up. Marishka, how long have we been working together? About 6 years, Pete. That's right. And you've kept this from me the whole time. And I was thinking, my God, you're embarrassing me in front of all these execs. And I went, sorry, Pete, what? And he goes, that was you at Rainbow, wasn't it? And I went, oh my God. And I just couldn't believe that someone of that seniority, who I have so much respect for, was actually the person I saw, didn't hold it against me. We all had a chuckle because the rest of them thought that DJ meant David Jones. But he was probably my best example of realizing, look, we're all human and we all like our own thing, and music is a pretty common one.
Wow. And for those listeners that are not familiar, when Marishka refers to Rainbow Serpent, it's probably one of the larger electronic music festivals here in Australia. What is it, about 25,000 people?
Yeah,
so it's a
the
pretty
last
big
count
deal in the
up
scene.
there, yeah.
Yeah. Well, good on you for performing at such a festival. I mean, I'm really, really interested to actually unpack further how you have managed to to balance this lifestyle of yours? You know, obviously working in a
Mm.
top tier accounting firm, and actually all of them really, along with performing at pretty big festivals. Can you help us unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, look, it's not something that was on my, um, if you like, career goals. So this was unplanned and hence was very much in the moment. So I never expected to be DJing. I did it because I thought I'd just have a go at a couple of lessons, and I wasn't really sure where I'd end up in a career-wise either. So how do I keep the balance? Well, I'm a pretty high energy person anyway, and I think if you're doing something you love on both counts, your energy's not being sapped from either. In fact, I get my energy from a dance floor. So I'm better off at the office if I've had my fix of tunes than I am without it. But really, it comes down to making, dare I say it, strategic choices. And that is, you've got a limited amount of time. What do you want to fill it with? So there was a lot of filling it with hours at the office. That's changed quite a lot these days. But instead of watching TV or sometimes going to the gym or doing things that maybe weren't really aligned to music and DJing or literally delivering on my goals, um, I would cut out. So I think it's all about focus and balance and putting some parameters in place. So I don't play Sunday nights. Um, that's something that helps me make sure that I've got the rest and I'm in the right mindset come Monday. And, I don't take office calls, though I have once at Prince, um, sort of after 8 o'clock or when I'm behind the decks.
Hmm.
Though they have attempted to do a review session while I was at Prince of Wales at about 1 in the morning because it was the only time we could get the US. But, I just think it's setting parameters and really knowing where your time goes and using it.
Hmm. And how do you feel that over the course of your career, this sort of attitude towards this balanced lifestyle, towards encouraging, let's call it extracurricular activities, or your creative passions,
Mm.
how do you feel that's changed over the years, or if at
God,
all?
so much, so much. Um, for me personally, it's changed because of my mindset change, which was to accept it and allow it, um, without apology. Though I think that, we've all become more human. Well, not all, but most of us have become more human, and we recognise that people are at their best when they are not needing to wear an additional mask. Whether that is their best because it gives them energy and it's the outlet, or their best because at times they may feel quite exposed or unsure. It's just, today I think we've got a lot more available options and channels to allow us to both explore and then also be who we actually are. And I tested that probably in my 40s, actually. I was a bit late. But in my 40s, I decided one day that it was time for me to really just go nuts and bring all of me. So I was bringing about 80%. And so I went and got my hair dyed teal blue. I was actually a senior at PwC at the time. No one had blue hair. We had a no red sneaker type policy, just moving into casual Fridays. And I thought, yeah, that should set the cat among the pigeons, as they say. I like to disrupt. And what I thought would be potentially a career limiting move, and it certainly felt like that, standing in the lift on the Monday with the mirrors everywhere, seeing everyone's eyes like this, nervous.
I can
Um,
imagine.
oh, God, it just, and just sort of seeing that through, the awkwardness, it would have been so easy to go home, but no, I stayed there. And there were mixed reactions, some of the older partners would double take as they walk past and then, come back and kind of shake their heads. But most of them thought it was brilliant. So much so that I ended up being on the Partner Roadshow as their pin-up for, being different. And, within a year, there was a lot of other blue hair. So it was, you know, it's a lot more allowable, but someone's got to start it. And I just took a chance, I guess, and that was gosh, that was about 6 years ago. So now that everyone's got blue hair, I've had to go back to brown. But yeah, I guess it was having a bit of courage, just making a decision about, this is all of me. And you keep talking about bringing your best self. Well, here I am.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and good on you for having that courage. PwC seems like a fairly sort of formal place to work, and in fact, I would imagine all the Big Four were. I remember I actually tried to go for grad jobs at all the Big Four, and I actually failed miserably at getting anything at either of them. But I'm not sure if blue hair would have helped me out back in that day either.
Like, can you imagine? I recall, because I'm a little bit further on in my life experience, I guess, years than yourself. And I recall, you know, really strict policies and expectations around how you would look, how you would speak, what you would and would not discuss. Whilst I believe that a respectful and professional conduct is really important because, that's where you are. I recall people almost being fired because they had a bit of a crazy haircut, or because someone had worn sneakers, or if anyone had ever rocked up on a casual day in anything other than country road, you'd have probably been, blacklisted. So,
Or at the very
it
least judged.
absolutely. I mean, you're not going to wear your dye yuppie scum shirt to work, though I did once on a bit of a challenge day. But yeah, people are more accepting. You're not there to offend, and you're not trying to freak people out or be so disruptive that you're just there for attention. But you're certainly allowed to be all of you. Look the way you want to, be who you are, as long as you're doing the work. You know, Relax. Bring your personality. Everyone has a better time, and the work's more enjoyable.
Yeah, and I guess as long as the work is being done and it's being done well, why
Hmm.
should it matter? In the end,
Mm,
we are human, and humans have this amazing cross section of different insights and experiences and personalities, and in my view, we should be actually celebrating that, and that creates better professionals. I mean,
yeah,
clearly, look at the caliber that you are. Look at the caliber of that you are, even as a DJ, and the music that you play and the crowds that you bring. I've felt the love from your music. I've felt the experience, and I just think if we try and shut ourselves off as a society from what's the word I'm trying to find
I
from
think it's from our passions. A lot of it, from our, what is it that really lights up your life? What gives you energy? What makes you positive? All those things. And you know, music for me is such a it's such an equalizer. So anyone can. I'm not trained in music, so there you go. There's one of my background things was I couldn't possibly be a DJ. Because I can't read music, I'm not trained in music. What would I know? So I kept telling myself that. Um, God, up until only, you know, X years back, let's say 5 years, I don't know, I've been doing it 20, um, just kept, they made a mistake type thing. Like, why would they want to book me? Surely they got it wrong. Is someone just being nice to me? Those people only said those nice things at the end because, they felt obliged. And it took me a long time to actually even accept, you know what, you're actually pretty good at this. And it doesn't stop telling yourself that you can't be or shouldn't be because of all of these other reasons. And the same thing applies to work or anything that you find yourself doing. It's the that weird little narrative and imposter syndrome and everyone else is better and who am I to think that I deserve to have this. These sort of narratives are so limiting, and yet we all do them, and we do them particularly in the things that we think are most important, I think.
100%. And yeah, you touched on a really good point with imposter syndrome. I think pretty much everyone in the world at some point has felt it. I've personally felt it very recently with starting this podcast. Probably a similar conversation in my head to what was happening in yours back in the day. Am I good enough? Is anyone going to listen? what value can I add? Oh, I'm not this, I'm not that. And
All the
yeah, it can
can'ts, all the
really,
reasons why not.
yeah, it can really consume you. And, courage. That's, you said it
Yeah.
before. It's about courage and just getting out there and trying it, because ultimately, do you want to sit and look back and live with regret and basically say to yourself, in 20, 30 years time, I wish I had have done that. I
Oh,
really wish I had have taken that step. And I don't want to live with that regret. And it sounds like you didn't either. So
see,
here you
that's
are. The sky
exactly
hasn't
it.
fallen. We're still
No,
here.
no, it hasn't. And no one's called me out. Hey, you get off your rubbish. Um, works, good. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Like it takes you until you've actually, I don't know, achieved enough that you finally give yourself a break. Whereas, you know, that sort of view of yourself might be quite out of line with how others see you. Now, like you said, Dan, this all goes with, the sort of, uh, I guess, requirement of doing the work, actually really making sure that you are the best that you can be at it. And I am a stickler for, if I'm going to do something, I'm an all or nothing. So all in my instance is try your best. Just try your best so that you don't have that excuse of, oh, wasn't really trying. So I hate that excuse. Give it
Because
a
in
go.
the
And
end,
if you,
like, what have
yeah,
you actually tried? Like, if someone says to me, "Oh, I've tried to do this or that," I said, "Okay, well, what have you? Look, break me down the
what have you
steps of what
done?
you've
Yeah,
actually done." And chances are they'll say, "Oh, I've done, maybe two or three things." Like, okay, well, there are infinite ways of trying with slight adjustment in your strategy to achieve that success. How can you
yeah.
just give up after two or three? You haven't really tried, have you? If your heart's in it,
See, I
you'll do
agree with
better.
you. I agree. Yeah. And it's that, I would rather die trying than not have a proper go. So that's in everything, and I'm not always going to be successful, though everything I've really set my mind to, I have. Um, but it's giving yourself permission just to uh, give it a go. Like, so what if you weren't number one? And what's someone going to do? Turn around and say, oh, Dan, you know, I don't see you on the Letterman show this year. Like, does it, you know, the no one says that for a start. And even if they did, well, it'd be pretty clear to see where that came from. So if you didn't try it and you didn't give it your best, you'd never know. And as you touched on, you get what you settle for is my motto in life, literally on everything. Friends, service, product, experience, relationships, all of it, like just give it a go and commit. And, if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, you'll learn something from that anyway.
Just make a
And
decision and
yeah,
do
make a
something.
decision and
Don't
start.
just
Just
sit there.
start. Yep.
Exactly.
This is the gunners. I'm gonna. I'm gonna. It's like, well, when? Less talk, more action. I'm a big one on that. It doesn't have. You're not going to do everything at once. So if it's recognizing that if you're going to do something, there will be hard times. You will fail. I have had so many fails. Um, Learning dignity in the face of failure, so that you don't fall apart, is a good one. That's what DJing has certainly helped with that. Well, I messed up a mix in the early days, and I would then bend under the decks and just lose it in that kind of devastating, so embarrassing, and have to
You
then
just
get
want to
up
fall
there
through
and
the floor, hey?
go through. Yeah, but keep going. So it's working through that awkward trial and error learning part. We all make mistakes. We're all human. We are all human.
And I guess so many people, and I've been very guilty of this for many years up until late last year when I started this thing. They love to exist in this comfort zone. It's this great warm gray zone where things are comfortable. You've got a roof over your head, food in your belly. Life's good, but it's not amazing.
Yeah.
And it's probably I've heard Tony Robbins talk about this before. It's about like where 80% of people typically live, and
Mm,
if you're conscious of that, you also start to get conscious of the mediocrity that life
yeah.
becomes. And for me, like when I had a look at this introspectively, I'm like, I don't want to be mediocre. I don't want to live this mediocre life. Like comfort will get you happy, if you can call it that, to a certain degree, but are we really not made for more? And I've seen that come through with you and your music and the stature that you have both in the business world but also in the musical community in Australia. And I just
Yeah,
we're celebrating mediocrity too much as a society, putting too much
I
emphasis
totally
on it.
agree. Yep. I think it's that whole, things, I guess I'd unpack it and say, um, it's, we avoid anything that's painful, the quick fix, the kind of, I'll give you an example with DJing. Everyone wants to be a DJ, apparently, though I never set out to be one. And, let's look at why you want to be that. So for a start, being honest with yourself about what's actually motivating you and why you're doing it usually helps give your life a bit of direction as to where to focus. So if you're doing it just because you want to be cool or popular or whatever, it's unlikely you're going to do exceptionally well. You might get to a point. So, actually, I guess, thinking about what's motivating you, doing the time, learning from your mistakes, it makes for a rich life. And I heard somewhere recently, another podcast. I love podcast formats; they're the quickest way to learn. But I heard somewhere that if you're not doing something that's new and new experiences and learning and fresh, then it feels like your life is, or time is actually going much faster than it is. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. Like normally you would have thought it's just because I'm trying to fit so much in, but it's actually the repetition and the same old kind of patterns every day, no new experience, no scary learning or even delight in achieving. It's just the same old kind of, I'm kind of happy, mediocre, and life just rolls on by very quickly. And you're left with that kind of a bit of a space in your heart, I think. And if you've got
Mm.
that, I just don't think you can be a happy, productive human. You can't ignore that forever. So doing new things, trying new things is also just as important. Apparently, it helps slow your life down, so you got more life to enjoy because you're learning.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel like you're still learning? Obviously, you've been doing DJing for a couple of decades now. Do you still feel like you're learning new things and expanding your
I am
horizons?
so, yeah. I love learning. I'm super curious. I'm curious about anything from why are all the snails crossing in one direction? So then I will literally count snails for 2 weeks every night, look at what direction they're going in and research it because I want to know. So weird sort of
And
things like that.
and
Um,
what was the answer then? Why do they go in
well,
one
there was a
direction?
trend. There was a trend. So I discovered that, yep, they they are, based on a lunar cycle. So they go in the direction of the moon. Um, they all go the same direction, and they're always more out, of course, on wet days, but they don't mind a bit of dry. So that surprised me too. Um, yeah, so anything that, I just like learning about new things, and it can be a craft or a creative outlet. So I have fairly recently done, so I used to consider myself completely non-creative, no creative part of me. I had a very different view of myself. I also thought I was an introvert. So,
I like the
yeah,
little
I know
giggle there.
we all laugh about this today. But yeah, so I've done, watercolor painting, working with clay. I bought everything to do this embroidery, making shaggy art rugs, but couldn't quite thread the needle. And the same goes for, the other side, I guess, the more, I'll call it work, but work is still creative. The other side is, you work at a firm like Deloitte or PwC or any of the big ones, or pretty much any firm with an internet these days because it's all available. And find myself, I sign up for everything. I sign up for learning how to write better stories and narrative for business. I sign up for negotiation skills. Um, I sign up to learn something about IT and the new kind of tech that's being, you know, deployed in a certain sector, which is, I would never have thought I'd be interested in, but I am. So, just having a curiosity in the world and continued learning. And God, I want to learn everything. I mean, literally, I have a list of things that I would like to be doing, from studying history to, yes, production and everything in between. languages are probably my only one that hasn't sparked my interest as much as others, but wait till I book a holiday and I'll be all over those kind of how to speak, conversational, whatever. So yeah, I'm continually learning from both formal education, but also from others, and they don't have to be older than me. They just have to have different perspective and bring different experience. I mean, where do you find yourself sort of being, I guess, finding new things to learn, or what sparks that initial curiosity in you to do that?
Yeah, well, for me, actually, this is a really, really timely conversation, and I'm so glad we got together to discuss this, Mish, because before I started, going out in the scene where you play, and obviously we met through my wife and her family there. I guess I may have looked down upon people that were in this scene and listened to electronic music a little bit. So I come from a bit of a different world, let's put it that way. And I would never have really organically interacted with people from the scene up until I met my wife. And then once I started doing that, I started getting these new perspectives that you talk about,
Mm.
started interacting with this whole plethora of different people. And I would consider the people more of my tribe than anyone else.
Yeah, isn't it funny?
And it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive from being a good business person or being in tech or finance or wherever you are, because ultimately you're learning off other people and you're
Mm.
learning different things, new experiences. I learned all about different sort of music that I never thought I loved, but now that's pretty much all I listen to. Like electronic music is 100% my jam.
Yep.
So I think we should really be celebrating this diversity. And yeah, I mean, this is just awesome. The fact that I'd never have thought I'd be doing this a decade
Oh,
ago. Let's put it that way.
and there's no limit on it either. So, I was always, um, I mean, my lists are always crazy long, but stuff it. You got to go as big as you like, because even if you got halfway there, it's like a lot of mine are sort of 4 or 5 person lifetime lists. But you watch me knock those off like there's a way. But it's I used to be that way as well with metal music. So I had never listened to any metal music until I was in my 40s, I think, or late 30s, and I was in a loan car, and a CD was in there. And I was driving to actually interview someone because it was for a work interview later after hours, doing the sort of deep dives. And I thought, oh, what's on that CD? Because the radio's rubbish. Put it on, and what happened to be on was actually Judas Priest and Painkiller. And so I'm driving in this car, and it starts, and I just go, what the hell? And it got, anyway, tracks playing, and I was so excited, slapping the car steering wheel and the rest of it. I had to pull over because I was out of control. Rang David, who had been in the car previous to me, and said, and he obviously, I sounded upset, and he goes, "You all right?" And I go, oh, and then hyperventilating. I just need to know. I need to know what the CD is. It yours? Oh my God! Anyway, we find out it is his. He tells me the name of the band. I go, "Oh, have you got any more of it?" He goes, "It happens to be his favourite band." He, dare I say it, David, but gets quite emotional because, and I go, "Are you all right?" And he goes, I can't believe my girlfriend loves Judas Priest." And after that, I just went back albums all the way, then ended up following them around Australia when they toured with Ministry.
Wow.
I was in the mosh pit. I had the best time ever. It was on my bucket list to hear, Painkiller live. And yet before that, I had sort of looked at people with metal T-shirts and long hair, like, probably a bit down my nose, bogans, they'd be all rough, not safe. Every time I've fallen over and in a mosh pit, yes, I've been in mosh pits. Every time I've fallen over, I have been lifted up. I've been lifted up and cared for and looked after. And it's actually one of the safest places where you can actually be so expressive in a way that society might not always be comfortable with. You're bashing into people, charging at strangers you don't know. And that's when I thought, my God, we've got all these ideas in our head about what things are and aren't. And the older you get, the more you might have these kind of unconscious bias, or you get quite fixed in what you think something is, even a place. So when was the last time you went to, I don't know, XYZ? You might have gone there 10 years ago. you just presume it's going to be static and unchanging. Um, constantly surprised at things move and everything is dynamic, and that goes with people and places. So if you had a bad experience once at a Big 4, they've changed. Have another go. Give them another go. Give yourself another go. So it's that whole preconceived ideas about what things are, and until you've actually done it, like my mum said, if you don't, how would you know you don't like it if you haven't tried it?
100%, 100%. And do you feel that sometimes we we tend to just settle for things that we know, and coming back to that notion of comfort zone, just being in there? Do you feel that we A, do that, and B, you're starting to see a trend, particularly in the business world, of people that are starting to try and expand their horizons and go public with it like you are now?
Yeah. I guess it's easy to do. It's easy to go comfort, and I do think majority of people kind of do that to a point, because it's uncomfortable to break a mold. It's uncomfortable to be the different one. Um, you need to be able to stand there knowing that what it is your truth. You need to stand there knowing that what your value is and what's important and all the other things, right? So it's not easy. Like, first time I did public speaking, I was so nervous I could barely get the quiver out my voice. First time I DJ'd, I couldn't get the needle on the damn record because I was shaking so much. Didn't even know how nervous I was about everything. So yeah, it's scary stuff. And you get older, I guess. More You've got more chance to try it when you're younger, but people don't because they think they can't make mistakes. And as you get older, the excuse of, oh, well, I'm too old to do that now, everything's fine. It just is what it is. And I go, bullshit. Like, nothing is what it is. If it's, make it what you want, or at least give it a go. Because like you said earlier, Dan, I just don't want to die wondering. I want to recognize what gives me joy and where I can also, create that for others as much as possible. And yeah, that's what life is, isn't it? It's all about that pursuit of happiness, and you're not going to get there just by ho-humming down the middle of the road, taking it easy. I mean, it's going to take some effort. Like, it's all easy at the end. It's all easy at the end, but the struggle to get to things, people forget that. They don't look back. They only see what you are now. And this goes for me doing this to others as well. I've made assumptions about people before when I thought, oh, well, it's okay for them because they're whatever they might be, very wealthy, very attractive, very senior, whatever it might be. And, they've got their own doubts and insecurities, and they've had to go through their own challenges and difficult times and question who they are. So I only realised that when I started being more human and let others be more human, then you start discovering these things and you think, oh my God, if we could just all talk to each other and just be open and honest, we'd all get to this good place faster.
Like we are now, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And,
Yep.
and I just feel like it's so okay to be vulnerable now and show our true authentic selves. I've talked about it in the past on the podcast, but I found that my relationships have actually gotten better, richer, and deeper when I've started showing some vulnerability, when I've started expressing my authentic self, like talking about the failures. Yeah, I have been rejected by the Big 4. So what? Still here, still doing well. And
Exactly.
to be honest, it's all part of the journey. Because yeah, like if nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yep.
But B, similar to what you were saying before, I thought of myself never as being a creative person, and I had this narrative in my head for, say, the past 15 years of my working career, and that's actually stopped me from giving anything a crack, really, other than trying
Yeah.
to launch, a business here or there. But now that I'm doing it, it's like, oh my God, this is madness. Like,
Why didn't I do this before? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
why is it? Like, where do these, where do we pick up, I guess, those narratives? So I know that a lot of mine was self-created. I went to like 13 primary schools when I was younger. And moved countries all the time. Like it seemed like every week I was moving country or different school, different uniform, different place. And, for me, that meant I missed a lot of basic schooling. And so, you learn things very differently in the US to the UK to Australia, and I was swapping around all of them all the time. So when I finally landed, there was lots of things I still can't do today. So I can't do Venn diagrams. Yeah. But I've got a postgrad in statistics because I did that to assure myself that I'm not stupid. It took me 4 or 5 degrees to get to that point. But, it's that what made you come up with that? So for me, it was an art teacher telling me my work wasn't very good, and that was it. I decided I'm not good at art. Not doing well at maths at school, I'm stupid. I can't do things. So it was surprising that I wasn't. In fact, I topped my year when I did the first year of commerce with statistics and calculus, having done nothing since year 9. But I was so terrified walking into the first lecture, even for something like that, that I was actually dry reaching into the bin outside the lecture hall, thinking my life's already over before I even walk into my first lecture. What am I doing here anyway? I'm stupid. I look back at all
Proper
this and
fear
think,
response.
shit, excuse me.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like real, it's super scary, like super scary stuff. And, I had to unpack for myself, as you would have and others should, what are you telling yourself? So if you're hearing in your, I can't, I shouldn't, people won't think it's very good, I'm not good enough. Sometimes that might be true. There's plenty of people out there that are bloody claimers and haven't done the work and aren't good enough and should be asking these questions and then just stopping. But the majority I've found, they've just got this kind of limiting narrative going on in their head from maybe one conversation or an event that happened some 30 years ago, like, more their lifetime ago kind of thing. So
and it can burrow into your subconscious, and you can actually forget about the specific event that caused you to think that way, but it's still there in your subconscious. And unless you do work like therapy or whatever else, however you want to approach the healing process, you may not actually know exactly what's causing it. So if you can help identify that and actually understand in your own mind and in your own body and soul why you have this opinion, then you empower yourself to actually make the change, right?
Yeah. Again, it's doing the work.
Yeah.
It's doing the work on yourself. It's doing the work for the acquiring skills. It's doing the work. So you're going to make mistakes doing it. You'll make mistakes on the podcast at some point. You'll do something that maybe you'll look back on and go, oh, God, I'd do it different now. But you're doing it. You're doing it.
Well, I made a
and
mistake
that's the bit
earlier.
that matters.
I got a bit lost for words. You help me out. We move on, right? This is a real conversation.
Yeah, and it's, again, it's all aligned. So you're not doing this to be, I don't know, I can't come up with reasons. I think people are so weird when they do things that they're not really into, but they think other people will consider good or valuable. But, if you just, why you're doing something, you've given it your best, and you're out there, all of you, warts and all, trying, failing, trying, succeeding, not giving up. It's just so easy first time if you stumble to go, oh, never doing that again. That was, that was not perfect or whatever it was. Jesus, nothing's going to happen, is it? And
100%.
And I know that you're the sort of person like me that is, if you're going to give something a go, you give it a proper go. You make sure you do your research on the sort of streaming. You articulate what your purpose is on it. You set up everything as well as you can. You give it the time and the respect and the focus, and then you see what happens. And that's go explore, because anything is possible. Anything is possible, and you never know until you start. And all this other stuff could open up for you, which it does.
You've got to do the work. You have to, like you made such a good point, you have to do the work and you have to put in. And if you're going to bother doing something, then bloody hell, just do it properly. Do it,
Exactly.
go full on, because you don't actually know where it could lead. And like what I've seen, particularly with a lot of people that are quite successful, they can start off in an industry or doing something that may not be profitable, may not be easy to monetize, but through their passion, through their energy, through their connection, it will happen. It's bound to happen. That's not necessarily the point of why I started this podcast. I'm doing this basically, yeah, for other reasons. Not financial, but yeah, if it does monetize, if it does take off, fantastic. But at least I know that I've lived true to myself, and I know
Yeah.
that we've had this conversation on many a dance floor. I know you feel the same way about music as well.
I think, like in all of your decisions, if you're making the decision for you and you've thought that through enough, you don't need to overthink it, though. I can sort of unpack things and unpack things. I can't help but analyze. I love it. But if you're doing it for the right intentions, it sounds so cliche, but it's true. Are you passionate about it? Really passionate, like it's something that just gets under your skin. You can't help it. It's sort of like falling in love. um, versus kidding yourself that you want to marry someone that's, a tick in the box. You can't generate the authentic thing. And just, yeah, being vulnerable to fail, like you said, learning from others too. And being able to look at yourself honestly with where am I at? Why am I doing this? Check it a couple of times because things change and we all forget. I remember my list of what I thought I wanted to be, and then one day realised, shit, I've already done all those things and I forgot to make a new list. And I would never have thought those things were ever possible in a million years, but here I am superseding them. And that was weird. So start it, do it well, um, do it for yourself, not for other people. Listen to other people because even people that aren't trained in that thing, they'll have an opinion. Um, let someone criticize you if they must. You don't have to always take it on. That's the other thing. And when you see someone else being new things, and they're being courageous and they're having a go and they're trying their best, support them, and applaud
Yeah.
it when they do really well. I get so overwhelmed when I see someone who's amazing at something. It doesn't matter if it's like those crazy card flicking ninjas that you see that can, flick a business card from across a room and sort of go through all these crazy sort of obstacles and then pop the balloon just on a normal business card. Or if it's, being a surgeon, yes, I'm going to go that broad, but whatever it is, just, throw yourself at it and be your best. Like, just
Because you weren't
grab
born
it.
a card flicking expert or a surgeon. That
No, that's
stuff is
right.
made through practice, trial and error, feedback, loops,
Yep,
effort. Yeah.
yep. And failing. That's the thing.
Mm.
I look back and go, and the failing, because no one wants to fail. It's kind of awkward. Um, there's so many times when it would have been easier to walk away because of a unsuccessful situation. So the first time I had to network, I was sent to a networking thing. I was at Snap Printing at the time as a marketing coordinator. And my boss goes, okay, there's this networking function. I want you to go down there and network. And I thought, what the hell? What do you do? I don't, what do I, okay, so off I go.
It's just a conversation, right?
Just conversations, and I'm very naive and in my cheap suit back then. But I rock up and there's, everyone's got the speech happens and then everyone's got their coffees and they're all standing around. And naively, I guess, but good on me, I would approach groups and go, hi, my name's Marishka. First time I've attended one of these events. How'd you find it? Anyway, you would think that would go okay, would have gone okay, just to be brave enough to walk up to strangers. But they were horrendous. Everyone turned their backs on me. They were snobby. They were cliquey. It was like all of your nightmares had happened. So I found myself standing there alone in a room full of pretty much hundreds of people with my coffee, just wishing that the earth would swallow me, thinking maybe I could just leave and say it wasn't very good. But I just stood there. And I kept my dignity and I sipped my tea. And eventually this person came over to me and started talking to me and how did I find it and so on. And have you met anyone? He'd obviously seen a few things, right? And took me around the room to introduce me. And that's when I found out he was actually their keynote speaker. He was the one that everyone was sucking up to, everyone wanted to see.
Nice.
And he had seen the interactions that I had had, obviously, and had decided upon himself to change that and had taken me around the room. And when he got to the first group who had been just horrendously rude, He just dismissed them. He just dismissed them. And he said to me, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming, all these things. Went back with all these names. Everything was great. But it made me realise I could have easily just bolted moments after those sort of horrendous things happened. And it was like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, that was. I didn't burst into flames, but that was about it. But it ended up sticking it through, had such a great result. And, I was so appreciative as well of someone else being, showing kindness and doing something instead of just watching it and commenting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good leadership. And I guess on your side, that fear of failure also, it almost consumed you, but you turned it into something positive. Maybe it was divine intervention, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was something else, but
I
that's a
think
really
the
good
first part is
example
the
of just,
decision to stick it out.
yeah, push through,
Yes, this
push
is
through.
uncomfortable, but just stick it out.
Yeah, well, that's how we learn, right? We don't always learn from the comforting things in life, and when things go well, we learn when things go a bit sideways, at least in my experience anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be boring if it wasn't, wouldn't it? I mean, surely that the thing when you've worked hard at something, or at least put some effort into something, you take more pride, you feel better about that thing when you finally, the end is achieved, or the bake a cake, whatever it is, if you've actually put in, a lot of yourself, your time, your energy, and trials and tribulations, when you get that outcome, because it will be it's a sweeter outcome. Success is sweeter when you've actually earned it, instead of just
And
being
enjoy the
given it.
journey. Yep.
Yeah.
So, Mish, if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what would be the one bit of advice that you could hone in on and give yourself?
Oh, look, I would actually say the one bit of advice that I would give myself that I do would be start saving now. You don't need those extra pair of shoes. I mean, I'm a shoe fiend. That would be my advice. But otherwise, it would be, I wouldn't want to change my life. So that's for a start. I would probably want the assurance of knowing that when you start something, it doesn't mean it's the end of it. So just because you started, and I ended up doing this myself anyway, but just because you start a degree in law doesn't mean that you're going to be a lawyer and that's it. You might be a lawyer and then you might end up working in I don't know, some sort of volunteering role, using your legal skills. Then you might find yourself doing a different degree or an experience and doing something else. And who knows, down the track, you might end up being a florist. Very different from where you started. So I would say, the world really is your oyster. Back yourself. Know who you are. I spent my time doing that, but it would just be, don't worry. Don't worry. We're all human. Everyone's trying their best. Don't take things personally. The whole, you interpret things, actions, emails, texts. It always comes from your perspective. Don't hold judgment, and appreciate that everyone is actually dealing with things personally themselves. Senior partners are still human. Clients are not clients. They're Marishka or Dan or whoever they are, and they all have things going on. So stop worrying so much would be another one. And otherwise, I'm pretty happy where things have landed, even the painful stuff, because I think I get my greatest learning sometimes from those, the harder times. I don't want too many more, but I've got the best learnings from them.
Love it, love it. In your true Marishka self, you've taken one central thing and you've broken it down into sub themes and just given me all them. I love it.
Oh, look,
that's what I would have done as well. I would have been like, so on this level, this is one thing I would have done, but then
I really think we're all here. We're all going to have experiences. Don't shy away from the difficult ones because they're very rich. You'll look back on them and realize how you conducted yourself in those moments is what will define you for the next ones.
100%.
So,
and don't live with regret. Just go for it.
Don't be a gunner. Don't be a gunner. Get out there, give it a go.
So speaking of giving it a go, Marishka, where to from here? What's the next moves for you?
Oh gosh, sport for choice sometimes. It's and I'm constantly asking this of myself, where to from here? Oh, so I'm playing around with UX a lot at the moment. I find that it's a thing that I have an affinity with it. I love it. Analyzing people, working out how to make it easier for them. So I think more learning, maybe some formal learning. Um, I'm also keen I think we get to a point in our careers where you go, I wouldn't mind giving back. I want to, um, lift someone else up, give them a go, whether that is doing volunteer work just at your local sort of area, um, or it's, I always have a pet project. So that might be a person I see who I think, hmm, you're worth investing some time into. You're
Mhm.
struggling at the moment. I can see that. And whether or not it's help that's asked for, sometimes I just barge in there and send, couldn't help but notice, here's some tips.
I thought you
You're
were an
doing all,
introvert.
you know, oh, yeah, exactly, huh? Who would have thought? So yeah, that was a big learning. But where next from here? I don't know, because there's so many new jobs that are opening and happening, and the world is changing so much. Sometimes I think, God, am I still relevant? But then I realise it doesn't matter about the tech or anything else at this point. We are still have the human condition, and so exploring more of that, exploring how language has power and what you can do to help others use it better or communicate with more feeling, or I, I would like to write as well. So I'm constantly scribbling around in a book, and I think I've read 3 of them. You are a writer. This is how you write. You have the power. So I'm still going through that. I don't imposter syndrome on that, but yeah, I think maybe some writing, music production, and seeing what I can do for others um, in a bit more of a formal way, so that you leave a legacy of some sort, or you at least make the world a bit of a better place.
Awesome, awesome, and yeah, look, really, really look forward to listening to your next sets coming up.
Thank you, mate.
I'm sure there'll be a good boogie in there, and good luck with your future endeavors. Maybe you'll end up learning that language you've always thought you want to learn.
Well, music, it's the universal language.
That's
I'll just
it.
go
That's
with
it.
that. No, it's a
Yep.
pleasure.
Yep.
Pleasure being on the show, Dan, and really appreciate the chance to have a chat with you.
Yeah, definitely. It was awesome having you on. And Mish, if people do want to connect with you and find you, what's the best way they can do that?
So they can find me on LinkedIn, Marishka Cross, and I get onto that a couple of times a week. Um, Otherwise, they can find me on SoundCloud under Mischief and on social media under both. Um, Not too many
Awesome.
Marishkas, so yeah, shouldn't be too hard.
Can't miss her. Blue hair, accounting for.
Yeah, you'll see the blue hair shots in there. So yeah, it's who
Awesome.
knows what colour will be next.
All right. Well, there you have it, dear listeners. That's a wrap for episode 3. Just want to say another huge thanks to Marishka. Yeah, it's been amazing having you on here. Super fun. Have loved your insights. I've covered quite a number of different topics, but some of the ones I can sort of remember off the top of my head: authenticity, balance, integrating your creative self with your professional identity, finding the courage to move forward, and not celebrating mediocrity. Really, if you're going to do something, do it well, do it with passion and with purpose. Um, yeah. So, wow, so much fun. If you've
Awesome.
got value from this episode, as much as I have, would really appreciate your support. Spread the love, spread the knowledge. Give us some feedback, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It would really mean a lot to me, and I'm sure to my dear guest Marishka here. You can also find more episodes on dancingwithdoubt.com. And I've also launched a new blog, basically reflecting on my conversations that I've had with my guests and giving some gratitude back. So Mish, keep an eye out for that one. And yeah, thanks for lending me your ears wherever in the world you are. As always, may success be with you. Ciao, ciao.